What's up, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Chicago Football Show. I'm Scott Bair alongside Carmen Vitali, and it's extra special because we're coming to you after the Bears and Miami Dolphins held a joint practice here at Halas Hall. It was fun. It was entertaining.
It was hot.
And the defense took Miami's lunch money.
Yeah.
It was a defensive display to the tune of 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and about 10,000 pass breakups. Carmen and I are going to get into all that, but we also need to tell you that we have a special guest with us coming up on the show. ESPN Dolphins reporter Marcel Louis-Jacques is going to join us. Very excited about that one. It's always good to hear about the other side,
right,
especially between the joint practice and the fact that there's a preseason game against the Dolphins coming up on Sunday.
There is, and I mean, this is not a team that the Bears will see during the regular season. It's not even a division that the Bears are really going to see this regular season.
Right.
So it's interesting to get a perspective from somebody, that isn't around all the time, that isn't in this Chicago bubble. And
Exactly.
I really enjoyed getting Marcel's perspective on everything, and it's going to be really good to hear again, just from a completely objective third party, which we aren't always.
Well, I think it's not that we're not objective. It's that we are living in a Groundhog Day of this training camp.
This training camp.
Carmen and I are up here watching every single practice, talking to each other nonstop. We don't even know what day it is. But we do know that there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming up on the show, including our guests coming. Uh-oh. I have to join a press conference.
What?
See you guys later.
Am I on my own here? We just got in from a very hot but very productive joint practice, and joining me right now is ESPN's Dolphins writer. This is Marcel Louis-Jacques. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Of course,
Thanks
absolutely.
for coming up to Chicago. I would have said, you got a break from the heat, but you didn't quite.
I don't know. Don't get me wrong. It was hot in the sun today, but that wind is different. That's special. We don't really get that up there in Miami Gardens.
I mean, you get the Windy City. It was only right?
It lives up to its name.
What did you think? What were your first impressions kind of walking into the Halas Hall today, and just, what the energy was like with these teams today?
I mean, first of all, this is a huge complex. 5 practice fields. I've never seen anything like it. But what stood out really was the physicality, specifically from the Chicago Bears defense. I don't think that is something – I don't want to say that the Dolphins defense isn't physical and hasn't been playing physical, but there's just a little extra gear that you hit when you're playing against somebody that is not your teammate, that you don't have to go see in the locker room. And I think that threw off their timing a lot, especially early in the day and again during red zone drills. So that is what I think was immediately noticeable. I also thought the Dolphins secondary, which has taken a lot of criticism, a lot of skepticism this offseason, I thought they performed fine. I thought they were fine. One-on-one drills, people are going to freak out about that.
Right.
Those are built for wide receivers to win. Those are built for wide receivers.
It is.
To win.
No, it's true.
If you're winning one-on-one reps as a DB, you are truly special. So I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into that. I thought they played fine.
And they've been dealing with their own injuries, right? The Dolphins coming in here kind of beat up, kind of hurt. What did you see, though, from Caleb Williams specifically, especially in those one-on-ones or even in some of the team periods? It was an up-and-down day for him.
Absolutely. And specifically during those 11-on-11 drills, I saw the Dolphins defense. I saw them get to him. I saw them force him out of the pocket and force him to scramble. And it's tough to fully evaluate it right now because you're going thud only. You're not bringing him to the ground.
Right.
You're not really, as a pass rusher, you don't really pursue after you think you got your sack. You do that, you wave your hand in the air, and then you kind of, you disappear for the rest of the play.
Right.
But I think the secondary held up. I saw Caleb scramble and then throw it away. Scramble, throw it into the dirt several times throughout the day. He wasn't finding those open receivers, and that is where it goes back to what I said about the Dolphins secondary.
Yeah.
They played pretty well, all things considered, for who is on this team right now and how little experience they have as a group.
Something that the Bears are trying to get going to this season in general is the run game, because they were such a one-dimensional offense last year. Ben Johnson comes in. He's obviously known for having a pretty well-balanced offense, very potent offense. There's not, like you said, there's not total live bullets here when you're doing joint practices. You're not bringing guys to the ground. But what did you see from the Dolphins' kind of run defense and how effective they were against the Bears today?
Well, that's where number 13 overall pick Kenny Grant comes in.
Yeah.
Big guy, we're going to say 6'3", 330 pounds. They brought him in to help establish a level of physicality in the middle of the defensive line and help plug the gaps, plug the runs. And I think he did that for the most part today. DeAndre Swift found some gaps here and there, but for the most part, I thought that he was bottled up by this Dolphins defense. And, this isn't just to be complimentary on just one side of the ball. I think defense won both sides of the field, but specifically against the run, I think Miami played it well, and that is an ode to the scheme that Anthony Weaver has established here over the past couple of years.
You said that defense won on both sides of the field. We saw a couple takeaways from the Bears defense today. We had that early interception by Tremaine Edmonds, who was all over the middle of the field, bobbled it a little bit, but still ended up coming down with it. How much of that is kind of the health right now of the offense and on the Miami side, and how much of that is, the defense just establishing that physicality, like you were saying?
Well, when we're evaluating the Dolphins offense, you have to start with Tyreek Hill's presence. There was none. He didn't practice today. He's dealing with an oblique injury. We heard from Mike McDaniel that, ironically, he made worse at practice a couple days ago, and so they're going to start throttling his reps back. And the competitor that he is, you just worry about him doing too much in a setting like this. But without Tyreek Hill, look, one of my favorite phrases about this offense is that it's about two things: Tyreek Hill and the threat of Tyreek Hill. So when he's not on the field, this turns into a completely different offense. And Jalen Waddle is still a special player. Malik Washington, second-year receiver out of Virginia, he's coming into his own as well. But we can't kid ourselves. If Tyreek's not on the field, this is not the same team. But what was really, I don't want to say concerning, because this is obviously training camp, but what was eye-opening was Tua throwing 3 interceptions today. He's thrown 1 interception all training camp, all of camp, and it was a red zone drill pick. Minka Fitzpatrick just read the route perfectly and took it. So to see him lose the ball not once, not twice, but 3 times today, one of them was a tip pass, I think that is something that he is going to kick himself over. He is a perfectionist. He grades himself very highly, holds himself to a high standard. He is not going to like how he performed at practice today. No matter what other positives he put on tape, I can promise you he is going to that's gonna irk him a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. And the thing, I think everybody's looking to see what the differences are going to be between Matty Palusa's scheme last year. Dennis Allen comes in. He's got a more aggressive scheme. He plays a lot more man coverage. How is that going to pay off for the Chicago Bears defense? And they weren't terrible at takeaways last year. That's one thing that was kind of the saving grace of this defense last year. But this year, they want to amp that up even more. So to see that against, this is the first time they've had a chance to go against a different team, and to understand that they don't know the plays that are coming, and they haven't seen this, they're not familiar with it. So those turnovers, I think, have to be encouraging when you talk about who won the day. You talked about the defense as well. Up front, I think you talk about the physicality. That's one place where Bears fans are a little concerned. They could not get after the passer last year. Montez Sweat didn't really have any help on the other side. This offseason, they bring in Grady Jarrett. They bring in Dayo Odengbo. What did you see against this Dolphins offensive line, again, without it being live bullets, as far as the physicality of those units in particular? I don't know if you were able to see one-on-ones, because I didn't have a good vantage point of it.
A couple miles away.
I
practice
know.
Field
I
number
was
9.
so upset. Those are my favorite part of these joint practices.
Well, I can tell you, they forced Zach Wilson out of the pocket several times.
Yeah.
They forced him to scramble. They made Tua uncomfortable as well. They actually put hands on Tua a few times, and I know Dolphins' offensive line did not take too kindly to that. But that's something, after speaking with James Daniels, who's going to start at right guard, and, if he can remain healthy throughout the rest of this offseason, he said that there were some plays that Tua had to get rid of the ball faster than I think the offense as a whole would have liked. Okay. So they're grading themselves highly on that. I think they had I'm not going to say one side dominated the other at the line of scrimmage, but this was not a clean day for the Dolphins at any level. Running backs were fumbling. Offensive line couldn't hold their blocks for very long, consistently. And then quarterbacks were loose with the ball as well.
Yeah, and that's you want the Bears' defensive line to be affecting the quarterback, and that's what they were doing, even if they weren't able to take guys to the ground. We did see a couple of skirmishes today.
Yes, we did.
It kind of ramped up. I think it was like bubbling under the surface for a little while. And then, you get to that last team period in the red zone and guys are kind of going at each other. What do you take away from things like that? Or is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a whatever? Like it happens. It's hot outside, all of that.
I mean, as much as you like to say no fighting doesn't make sense. Like it's going to happen. It always happens, right? This is the first time that you have seen a non-teammate across the line of scrimmage.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
It's gonna happen. Like certain things that your teammate might let slide, you're not gonna let slide with somebody that you really don't know. And as long as it doesn't get out of control, I don't think any of them were out of control. I don't think it was too chaotic. It was just a lot of joy. I mean, shoot, one of these was between two Dolphins
players.
So that was, Jordan Brooks had to be separated from a teammate today.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell which teammate it was, but we did get to talk to Minkah Fitzpatrick afterward. He said that Jordan is a leader. He is going to hold people accountable and to a high standard, and sometimes that's confrontational, but it's necessary in order to grow and in order to learn from mistakes. But the one that I think everybody is talking about, I don't know if we have footage of it. I don't know if it's ever going to get out. But during red zone drills, when Mike McDaniel, the 5'7" Mike McDaniel, gets in between these red zone skirmishes, screaming and telling people to get out of it.
Right.
We also talked to Minkah about that a few minutes ago, and his first response was, "Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
No.
Hey, we appreciate it." He said, "Thank you for being our leader, but we need our head coach."
Exactly. I mean, he's not in pads. Not to mention he is 5'7", and you got these big guys. Ben Johnson did also come in, so it was the two head coaches at one point pulling guys off of each other. Which, I mean, Tyreek Stevenson was involved in that one as well as Kevin Byard, but Tyreek Stevenson was kind of put in timeout for a couple of plays there, but was able to rejoin. And I think it's that line, right? It's the line of, we want you to be physical, we want you to be aggressive, we want you to compete, but we don't want you to cross it. So have you seen more of that from the Dolphins this year, or like this training camp so far, or was this entirely expected or unexpected?
I mean, we really haven't seen too many of these confrontations among themselves. I
Yes.
think if they're arguing or if they're jawing back and forth, they're mostly doing it out of our view. But as far as training camp fights go with single team practices, maybe 1, 2.
Okay.
All summer, so it's not something like they're just chomping at the bit to fight. But again, it's a joint practice. It's the first joint practice. It's the second or third night of a long road trip.
Yes.
I think it was to be expected.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The Dolphins have to go up to Detroit right after this and have joint practices up there. And I'll be very interested to know, given how physical Dan Campbell and his team are, how many skirmishes, if it's more or less than what we saw with the Bears. But coming in, and I think having a different perspective about this Bears team now, they made the splashy hire. They added experience all along their staff. They added along the trenches, which is something that I was begging them to do forever. What's your take on what the Bears can expect to be this year? Or, as someone who, you covered Mike McDaniel in the Dolphins or in Miami for quite a while now. I mean, he's been there, so you haven't had to go kind of through these turnovers. But what is the perspective for the Bears this year, or kind of the prospectus?
There's a lot of talent
Yeah.
on this team. There's talent at every position. Loveland and Kmet at tight end, obviously Caleb at quarterback, DeAndre Swift. The receiver room is still stacked with DJ Moore, with Roma Dunze. I love the Luther Burden pick as well. I think it's somebody who a lot of people expected to go very high in the first round entering last year's college football season. So there is talent on the field for this Bears squad. I think it's a good hire in Ben Johnson and getting somebody who's creative enough to get these players the ball in space, to manufacture touches for certain guys. I can see a world where this is successful. He is also a first-time head coach.
Right.
He is also coaching a number 1 overall pick who's got the weight of an entire city on him, and who's welcomed that kind of pressure and wants that pressure and wants that first 4,000-yard passing season in Bears history. This is somebody who wants that spotlight and wants all of it. So I'm interested from afar. Obviously, they don't play the NFC North this season.
Right,
and
I know.
Dolphins are in the AFC. I don't watch a whole lot of NFC North football, but this is maybe the toughest division in football right now, if not top 2 or 3. So I'm very intrigued from afar on how this all comes together and what kind of growing pains we're going to see.
I think even up close, we're all intrigued, because it's a very tough division, and it was last year. You don't know how much of a step back any of these teams are going to take, even the ones that have a little bit of question marks. But from the Dolphins' perspective too, do you think that they did enough this offseason to revamp this team a little bit, because there's been some question marks for a couple of years, mainly up front. That's my perspective from afar. Do you believe they did enough to compete in the AFCs this year?
It is like our long-running joke with Chris Greer, the general manager in Miami. There was a moment a couple years ago when he told us at a press conference, he said, I think you guys are more worried about the offensive line than we are, like than the staff and the actual team is. And fans, I don't think they. I was just every injury, every single time they ate it up. So he did admit, earlier this offseason, like, yes, we are going to have to spend on this offensive line. They put spent a second-round pick on Jonas Savaiinaia, who's going to start at left guard, James Daniels, Larry Borum, like I said before. And then they still have Austin Jackson returning. He's a little hurt right now, but they expect him to be ready for week 1. They've got Aaron Brewer, and then Patrick Paul, their second-round pick from last year. They feel like they have made the proper investments on the offensive line. At cornerback is what, that one was – it was a head-scratcher because they did not make the moves this offseason, you would think on paper, that suggested they were prepared for Jalen Ramsey to not be on the team anymore. Right. But Jalen Ramsey's trade, it was not a mutual decision. The Dolphins wanted to trade Jalen Ramsey. Yeah. He did not ask for it. So this is something that they wanted, and
they didn't really prepare for it. Yeah.
But it's because they believe in the guys. They believe in the guys they have in the building. Chris Greer, one thing he is very good at is finding UDFA defensive backs. Okay. Storm Duck, listed as number 1 on the depth chart.
One of the all team name, or all name team. There it is, all name team.
I don't know that they're going to challenge the Bills for this crown. I think this is the Bills' division until proven otherwise.
Fair.
But I don't think this is going to be like a 5-12 team like we saw. I think I forget the outlet. Some major outlet predicted 5-12, and I think that's a little bit dramatic.
Fair. I'm so excited to kind of see both of these teams with all the question marks that they have, going from now and then seeing how they evolve kind of throughout the season. But thank you so much for joining us, Marcel. I really appreciate you coming on with us, giving us a different perspective that we're just, not usually going to get.
That's what I'm here for. Go Devils, too.
Go Sun Devils. Ooh, I didn't even get it right. Thanks, guys.
Now I'm back.
You're back.
On the Chicago Football Show. So sorry
Thank
that
God.
I missed the interview with Marcel. Catch me up. How was
I was going to say, I've got some catching up with you to do. It was a great interview. Listen, Marcel, actually, him and I are both Sun Devils, even as much as I messed up the pitchfork, which I haven't done in a few years. But I really, again, enjoyed that perspective from him. And I think it was a good point that he brought up that I think the defense won on both fields today.
I do too.
It was, but the interesting thing that Marcel told me was that prior to today's practice, Tua Tagovailoa had not thrown more than 1 interception all of camp.
Wow.
So then he had 3 today, and that's something that he's probably going to be thinking about for a while. But I think it was a great testament to the Chicago Bears defense being ready for a new opponent coming in and being able to anticipate things even when they're not as familiar with the guys on the other side of the ball.
And that press conference I was in talking to veteran safety Kevin Byard III, he talked about Dennis Allen really adding a sense of importance and gravity to this practice. And it wasn't go out and kick their butts. It was like, let's take this seriously. Let's play physical. Many of the starters for this Bears team are not going to be playing on Sunday in the preseason game. So they got tons and tons of reps. We saw the intensity that really Kevin was talking about wanting the Bears defense to be tone setters. And Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard were the tone setters of this practice. Brisker came out and got that early pick. He blew up a running play early on and kind of set the tone for the rest of the day. It was an important thing. How often have we been sitting in these directors' chairs in front of this mosaic saying that this Dolphins joint practice, we needed to see clean football, we needed to see improvement, that this was a big marker in the course of this training camp.
Yeah, I asked Ben Johnson about that this morning, actually, because I wanted to know, is that still kind of the plan, is to use this practice as a benchmark for how far along this team is and compare it. And that's what he said, essentially. He's like, I'm looking for those guys to still go out there and be physical, but to not cross that line, because a couple practices ago, it sounds like they crossed the line a little bit. But now going against another opponent, you can't really afford to cross that line, but can you still maintain that physicality without being reckless?
Yeah,
And
good term.
that was, I think, something that we did see today. There were a couple of skirmishes. And Tyreek Stevenson did get thrown out. I talked to Marcel about that a little bit for a couple of plays, but then was able to rejoin later. It was a tone-setting day, though, for this Chicago Bears defense. And, I mean, we were up in the stands kind of with the Dolphins writers, and I don't know if you heard them talking about it, but I heard quite a few guys being like, man, this Bears defense is physical. And that has to be music to your ears if you are a Chicago Bears fan, if you are Dennis Allen even, and this defensive staff, because this is exactly what you want out of these guys. They are going to have, the defense is going to have the least amount of runway when it comes to how this season starts.
100%.
The offense is going to need some time, I think, to gel. There's too much turnover there. Ben Johnson's system is not it's very complex. You are going to have to rely on your defense if you're Chicago in the beginning of the season to limit the amount of points, to be aggressive, to create more opportunities for this offense. And seeing them at this point in training camp, this evaluation point or inflection point of training camp, I think you have to come away encouraged.
I don't think I've heard it phrased that way, but it was perfectly worded in that the defense has a much shorter runway.
Yeah.
Because the offense is naturally going to have a longer one. We've spent a lot of time, probably the majority of our time, talking about Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson and a lot of these flashy names.
And rightfully so.
Sure. But you almost forget about maybe this defense could be like really good, and we're starting to see some. And this is against an offensive line with Drew Dahlman and Joe Tooney and Jonah Jackson. Right. And we're starting to see that defensive line really kind of wake up now that pads are on. Yep. The secondary is being used in innovative ways. Dennis Allen isn't afraid to blitz. We're seeing a lot of interesting things from this defense that it is a shorter runway. But maybe that's the bedrock of this team, despite the fact that there's so much flash on the other side of the football.
Let's not forget where we are, Scott.
Yes, exactly.
Chicago.
It's the legacy.
It is the legacy, and that's something that carries over through generations of Bears teams. And I think it's the identity of the city. I think that for as much firepower as they potentially have on offense, and having the offensive guru at head coach, and having the flashy quarterback that can do all sorts of things and create in the backfield and all of that, that's great and that's wonderful, and you need to score points in this league. But Chicago is and always will be defense, and that needs to be part of this team's identity, as well as scoring points. Don't get me wrong.
Right, and especially in the fantasy world that we have right now, because you don't often use defensive players, but if you're into fantasy football, the Renegade Fantasy app is the only app that allows you to make substitutions in real time. Stop the clock and participate in second season drafts just like a real coach. Join the Tom Waddle League Renegade Fantasy Football app. Win your season and score $5,000.
$5,000?
I want $5,000.
So do I.
Maybe I'm going to play this thing. Are you ready to take your fantasy team to the next level? That means no more losing Sundays, seasons, or wasted lineups. Go to tomwaddle.renegadefantasy.com and join today. I mean, $5,000. I think I'm in on that.
I like that was really well integrated in there. Thank you.
I
was like,
I have my
fantasy,
moments.
There's where he's going. Okay.
All right. Well, then let's talk about the guys that can earn you fantasy points.
Sure.
We saw it wasn't a bad day from the offense. It wasn't up to the defensive level, but there were moments that you really saw something. Colston Loveland showed us a little bit. Olamide Zaccheaus showed us a lot.
Every time I looked up, I felt like at the first team offense, Olamide Zaccheaus was making a catch, was making a play. Like our guy OZ, friend of the show.
He is. Thank you.
It really seemed like he's kind of stepping up, even with Luther Burden now back healthy and getting really good reps. It does seem like OZ is that wide receiver 3 right now.
I think he has to be. He just continues to show up.
Right.
And he may not have the flash in terms of raw skill that Luther Burden does or some of these other wide receivers, but he catches a lot of passes. He had one. It's always tough with offense because if they're not tackling to the ground, how far would he have gotten?
Right.
But there was a long catch and run from Caleb Williams to OZ, and there's no doubt in my mind that would have been a touchdown in real life football.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
too.
he just found a way to split defenders, find a way,
and then get behind them. Yep.
Yeah, and it was really impressive. And I think that a lot of attention is going to be paid to DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. And if you're getting production from Colston Level and the rookie, from Luther Burden, from Zacchaeus, I think it makes the offense very dangerous when you have that kind of depth.
Absolutely. And we also saw, DeAndre Swift getting involved in trying to balance out this offense with the run game. But that was the one thing that I took away too, was we didn't hear too much from DJ Moore or Roma Dunze. We didn't see much of them, and it was because of the fact that the Dolphins defense was paying quite a bit of attention to them, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But then you have other guys that can step up outside of your top two that can still make plays, and that is the mark of a really good offense. That's the mark of a Ben Johnson offense, because if you think about Detroit and who he has to target there, or who he had to target there in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. You had guys, though, like Jamison Williams and Tim Patrick even stepping up for those guys outside of, the running backs, too, having that tandem of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Those were all options, and it created this very well-rounded offense that was very, very hard to defend, because you don't know who to key in on. And if you do, it's almost always going to be the wrong answer. And that's the kind of offense that I think Ben Johnson's trying to create here as well.
And I think that's why everything we're talking about makes sense about why Ben Johnson, Declan Doyle want to get the basics right. The pre-snap stuff, the appropriate reads, because I feel, in my opinion, they feel confident that if they can master that, the athletes on the team can kind of do the rest.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's an important thing as we kind of move forward. We can't go the whole show without talking specifically about Caleb Williams. What was your take on him against the Dolphins, and kind of as we're at this point? He's obviously not going to play Sunday,
right?
But where are you at with QB1 here as we kind of wrap up this football talk?
It was inconsistent, and I'm going to say that because, he did get flushed out of the pocket multiple times. There were a couple team periods that were not productive, as in the offense did not score a touchdown, was not in scoring position at the end of it. Caleb Williams visibly frustrated a couple of times, and I think that's a good thing. But, I mean, like I said, I think I talked about it with Marcel. Both defenses kind of won the day, on each field. And I think that's a fair assessment. I think the Bears defense was a little more dominant in what I saw out of there. But there were some turnovers on that field. There was some start and stop when it came to Caleb Williams. So I think it was inconsistent, but there were a couple flashes that are still encouraging.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this day overall, huge day here at Halas Hall.
Yeah.
Because we had a joint practice against the Dolphins. We've had press conferences. We also had a chance to speak with President and Kevin Warren and the chairman of the Bears, George McCaskey, and they talked a lot of stadium. Let's hear from Kevin Warren and what he had to say about the next steps for the Bears getting a new place to play.
We are still extremely focused on Arlington Heights, on building our stadium there. That's the plan. We strongly believe that is the only location in Cook County that will allow us to build a stadium, the new Chicago Bears stadium with a fixed roof. We're making great progress. We are now in the process of having weekly meetings with the leaders at the Village of Arlington Heights on a weekly basis.
I wouldn't say there was a ton of breaking news like stop the presses stuff out of Kevin Warren, but they're all in on Arlington Heights at this point. That's where they're putting their efforts towards it. They've got some political maneuverings left. But what did you take from both the sound that we heard and from Kevin Warren's presser overall?
Yeah, the presser overall kind of laid out the timeline from here on out, like what is preventing the Bears from breaking ground in Arlington Heights, because in Kevin Warren's words, they're ready. But it has to come down to a city vote in Arlington Heights for a bill that would allow the Bears to do so and to be part of the property tax kind of conversations.
Certainty, yeah, and then something from the state.
Something from the state as
in
well.
In terms of a major project legislation.
The timeline is that bill could come up for a vote in October, and the hope is that it will come up for a vote and that it will pass. It was presented in May. It did not go to a formal vote. At the state legislature, it did not go to a vote. So they are hoping that now in October, that is going to happen. It is going to pass. That is kind of the roadblock that the Bears are facing right now when it comes to actually breaking ground in Arlington Heights. But, Kevin Warren brought up, listen, in this team's 105-year history, they've never had their own stadium.
Wow.
Which is kind of a wild thought, right? This is a founding franchise of the league, And it is a historic stadium that have extensive renovations have been done to, but the Bears are missing out currently on all of these marquee events that could be coming to Chicago because they do not have a new stadium that has a dome that can facilitate these events, like a Super Bowl, like a Final Four, like concerts in the winter. These are all things that both Kevin Warren and George McCaskey talked about wanting to bring to the city of Chicago because it will benefit not only the Bears, but it will benefit the city of Chicago, it will benefit the city of Arlington Heights, Chicagoland as a whole. I came away with that is the reasoning behind a lot of this is they want to bring these marquee events to Chicago because it is such a wonderful city.
Yeah, it's been a long time and a long process with winding roads and turns and stops and all kinds of crazy stuff. But that's kind of stadium construction in the modern era.
Yeah, Kevin Warren doesn't seem to be too concerned with how it's
because look
going.
at what he built in Minnesota. That venue, a US
Took
Bank
30
Stadium,
months to build,
but
by
it's
the way.
also immaculate and awesome. And I'm sure that Bears fans want that. I think they would like that at the lakefront. Not always necessarily possible, but that was kind of the update. George McCaskey also took the podium and really talked a lot about being impressed by Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson working well together. They extended Ryan Poles through 2029. That was kind of the other topic besides the stadium that fans should probably know about. And I think, wow, that was like a lot of stuff that we just went over. A lot of football. From the joint practice with the Dolphins, you have the preseason game, and then next week we are going to come to you with another joint practice
with the Buffalo Bills this time.
special with the Bills. That's going to be fun. The thing that's really cool about this one, Marquee app exclusive. So if you haven't downloaded and subscribed to the Marquee Sports Network and the Watch Marquee app, you're losing out not just on this, but on a bunch of exclusive, really interesting things. It's definitely worth the subscription. Thank you guys so much for subscribing on any platform, on YouTube or on any of the audio platforms. Thank you guys so much. But the Watch Marquee app, man, that's where it's at. That's where you can get everything. Cubs, Bears, Sky, Fire. I don't know. So many teams. Download it and rate, review, subscribe us. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop talking now, I promise. That's Carmen. I'm Scott. We're out of here. See you later.
Bye, guys.